friends, this is Aparna Singh telling her story, Frying Pan to the Fire. The story is an extreme example of the miseries of menstruating women in reformatories. Sonia, the prostitute, is told that the only way she can procure sanitary napkins is by bartering her body like many other female convicts. Frying pan to the fire. Sonia could never have apprehended that the caresses would so suddenly turn into fatal blows. A steady flow of slaps and punches landed on her face and abdomen. She could hardly utter a scream as two strong arms gagged her. For a few seconds, she knew, with an unwavering finality, that she was going to die. Then, a strong urge to breathe overtook her, but she found no purchase. The blurred image of a heavy flower vase indiscriminately mingled with her receding vision, and the picture floated at arm's length. The next moment, which seemed to be ages later, she found herself in a hospital. On regaining consciousness, she realized that an imminent arrest awaited her. They had labeled it an attempt to murder. Wish they knew, she brooded. Jail was a living hell, a troubling fact she was not unaware of. Many women from her area had to visit prisons, not always for similarly grave, non-bailable criminal offenses. The jailbirds came back with gross stories. She always hoped she would be careful enough to not invite trouble, as long as she could, and here she was. Her life had been put through a mindless roller coaster of trials and tribulations, both myriad and unexpected. The mullions reminded her of the caged bird back home. The bird kept to herself mostly. It never responded. Sonia often thought it was dumb, a silent, dumb bird. She could now see how the sky must have looked through its pensive eyes, segmented into thin blue slices as vertical iron rods ran in parallel lines across it. Not knowing how to register this sudden, unexpected transition in her life, she was mostly withdrawn and lost. All this turmoil had blurred the memory of her last periods. A sharp abdominal pain jolted through her. This clearly was not her injuries. She was familiar with the throbbing, piercing pain that persisted in her lower abdomen. Her instincts were on alert. She tried to tap into the pain, digging into it like a deft archaeologist at work. No, this was menstrual pain. It came on in stinging, undulating pangs, a distinct semblance to her periodic woes. The pain was accompanied with the adjacent unease of not having access to sanitary pads. It was the second day, and she had already bled through her salwar. She had placed a request with the warden and reminded her umpteen times about the pads. Her requests had fallen on deaf ears. Finally, when she did get them, she had been sleeping in her bloodied salwar on a bloody floor, inviting the chagrin of her fellow cellmates and infections. Asking for laundry facilities was absolutely out of question. Power dynamics in the prison were dangerous. And dangerous sounded so severely understated when Sonia came to know how it all worked. One of her mates had told her about correctional officers who offered menstrual products in exchange for sexual favors. So she had to choose between her right to refuse to be raped and her right to basic hygiene. If this could be called a choice at all, then she would pick between the humiliation of going without sanitary products, counterposed to giving in to the sexual overtures of men who had power over her. Babita had to undergo a hysterectomy, Maya recounted. Maya, a tall, sturdy, headstrong woman with whom she shared the cell. They had been sharing tampons as the authorities had been rather tight-fisted in supplying them. Straining her memory for accuracy, Maya at long last recalled that Babita and many others were suffering from toxic shock syndrome. This was the first time Sonia had heard of it. The very name had an ominous ring to it. The HIV prevention programs she had recently been to filled her with a similar odd feeling of helplessness. She later learned that the syndrome was usually spread through the use of makeshift tampons and could become fatal without timely medical attention. Nobody had any idea about Babita's whereabouts. She had quietly disappeared from their thoughts and memories, just like the memories of an unborn child. One of the women had children back home. She would pine for them, beg the warden to allow once-a-week meetings at least. Their loud, acrimonious altercations echoed through the long, eerie corridors. The woman would roam around in a blood-soaked prison uniform, making it a gory display of some distasteful horror movie. Maya, in the course of narrating her prison woes, drifting from one incident to another, had offhandedly stated how this woman would trade off her menstrual products for being allowed to see her children. Those heartless idiots wouldn't let her see her children. This is how nasty our prisons can get. At times like these, her voice reached a high-pitched, painful crescendo, departing from her usually grumbling monotone. Last night, a bitter fight broke out between two women inmates. Their screams had brought the guards scurrying. It took some time to disengage the two. Their faces bore the scars of a physical skirmish, like a deserted no man's land. The next day, when Sonia stole a glance at one of them, how worn out she looked. Painfully limping to her ward, her legs dragged down with invisible iron chains. The other woman she searched for was nowhere to be seen. She imagined her with a deep gash running right past her left eyebrow, like an abandoned tunnel. She just hoped, almost against hope, that she was okay, if not entirely unscathed. They had been competing for sanitary products and everyone knew about it. This was a normal occurrence in prisons. All the women had to stay without pads for a week, a punitive measure for the rabble-rousers. Since laundry facilities were available only once a week, they had to remain in these bloodied garments for that entire period. Withholding products and subjecting women to severely unhygienic conditions were some of the most insensitive and cruel ways of humiliating and controlling them. Maya had once spoken with the confidence and narrative command that comes with having been there and seen it all. She had a thick repository of tales, accumulated over her long stint in the prison. She shared them with a resilient pride, the pride of survivors who have lived through hell and come out of it alive. The unfurling would continue for a long time, as even a light sigh would set her off to long buried secrets. Listening to them was a blood-curdling experience for Sonia. With a little optimism she resolutely nursed, she felt that an exposure to these morbid tales might prepare her for the worst. That fateful night was gruesome. She, at times, didn't know if her brothel was any better than this jail. Had she landed into the fire from the frying pan?